The November SAT for 2025 is literally just around the corner. For many seniors, this is the last chance to get their SAT score higher before they send off their college applications. This year for fall of 2025, the SAT has been extremely hard, and this video is going to cover those SAT trends so you know what to study to prepare for test day. Hi, I'm Rebecca Beard. I own NicevilleTutoring, which we cover subjects K through 12 with an emphasis on test prep. We have over 45 teachers on staff who support students online and in person. If you're looking for some support, we have our link in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with study tips and tricks. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty details of what type of questions to study for the ELA or the math, one key thing to note on the SAT is that it is an adaptive test. Most students know that, but they don't fully understand it. So what that means is on Module 1 is going to be your most important score, and on both the math and on the ELA. Whatever you score on Module 1 is going to lock you in for Module 2. So if you are needing to boost your scores, your first goal is to consistently get, and you can use Blue Book practice tests if you want, to get 15 out of 22 of the math questions correct on average, and then for the reading to get 18 out of 27 of those questions correct to be able to get the harder Module 2. It's not a perfect science, but this is about the average that you need. Okay, now let's get into what types of questions you should focus on when you're studying for the November SAT. So the ELA section is first. We've already gone over the importance of Module 1, but here are my 5 question types that you really need to lock in for this exam. So the first one is those paired passage questions. Those kind of disappeared for a little while, but honestly, they're back and most students struggle with them. It's two people with conversations, and you really just need to focus on what each author is feeling and saying. And that sounds really, really cliche, but if you find a positive or a negative connotation from each author, it becomes way easier. And with the paired passage questions, you have scratch paper you can use. I love using scratch paper for those particular type of questions. So number 2 is going to be the logically completes the text questions. Whenever you see these, the best way to go about it is, instead of reading at the top, you always read the question first, and then you look for the specific claim or real world example. The key is you need to be able to summarize the connotation of the text to be able to find what's going to conclude it. They have increased this to about 2 to 3 questions per module. It's not a perfect science, but please know how to do those. Number 3 is the subject-verb agreement pattern trick. Always make sure you are checking the subject with the verb, which sounds really simple, but students mess this up all the time. I know it's a little bit middle school, but please make sure you know that certain verbs like is and was are singular and they go with singular subjects, and then other verbs are plural like were and are. Very basic, but most students have not reviewed that since middle school, and it's much better to test it instead of going with your gut. Then number 4 is the transition words, which kills students. And ironically, the students that have the highest math scores have the lowest transition word scores. I cannot figure it out why. Most of the times you know how to use like words like though or however, but there's always hard words on there, especially like thus, moreover, and simple ones like that. So I would review the practice test and then kind of make your own columns of which ones are positive or contrasting even, and then which ones are negative. Because once you get the connotation, it's way easier for those. And if you're ever stuck on moreover, I just always tell myself it's like adding more, and most of the time I can figure it out from there. And then number 5 is the good old research notes questions. The wrong way to do those is really focusing on the bulleted list, but instead just hone in on what the question is asking for and then refer back as needed. Just a reminder, on the ELA test, you have 4 categories that you need to knock out. They are craft structure, information and ideas, standard English conventions, aka grammar, and then expression of ideas. They are about 25% each, give or take, and so you need to hit on all those areas before you take this SAT. Now on to the either loved or dreaded math. So first of all, of course, please learn the Desmos graphing calculator that is built into the test. We are going to link the video below that goes over some basic things that you absolutely need to know, but you are likely going to crash and burn if you do not learn that calculator well. So there's my first disclaimer. Okay, so some trends that we are seeing is one, scatter plots and lines of best fit. Make sure you do know how to solve those correctly. Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're hard, but remember, best fit line is just going to go straight through those dots. Another one is on all exponential growth. They've been making these even harder. Please make sure that you know the initial value goes before the function that is going to show the increase with the rate over time. Another big one is radian to degree conversions. Sometimes they work in Desmos depending on the setup, sometimes they don't. I actually have an allowed program in my graphing calculator. It's in the ACT calculator program bundle. Still works for the SAT, so we will link that below as well. Another thing that we are seeing is function transformations. That's just pretty much how you move a graph. Most of those you can figure out in Desmos, but make sure you do know that. More on this is going to be knowing where and how to solve a circle. And the biggest way you could master this is knowing the basic circle equation. And if you're like, I can't memorize this, well, you actually don't have to if you've got one of these, which is why I have it. So please note that if you have one of these TI-84 Plus and it's not a wiped calculator, which is only a few kids, if you click the buttons apps and then number 4 is going to be conics, you have all your formulas there. And then the last thing that has been really challenging is going to be the percentage stacking, which pretty much means you have a lot of percentages going on, and the hack for these is relating those percentages to real numbers. Make sure you practice those and it will extremely help. Now, that being said, with the math score breakdown, don't hyper focus on the geometry like some kids do. The key is that 70% of your score is going to be Algebra 1 or Algebra 2. 70%. So that is where, if you're trying to directly pull up your score, that's where the meat of the work should be happening. The geometry and trig is only 15% of your score. So keep that in mind as you're studying. So the ironic part of this video is I'm actually preaching to myself. I have taken the digital SAT before, but I am signed up for the digital SAT this November, and I'm going to be hyper focusing on boosting and locking in to get an 800 on my math section. So if you need someone to guide you, if you need support from our team, we're going to link all of our resources below in the bio. We have paid resources, but also on this channel, we have plenty of free resources. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you need more shorts, we have lots more on TikTok. So I hope to see you there. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop in the comments.